We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the radio show discussing the honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project, on this edition of Illinois Rising. And Pat, we're just a couple of weeks away from April 4th municipal elections, and they're low turnout elections. People may want to pay some attention, and particularly in areas, communities that have, school referendum that directly impacts your property taxes and thus your home value, like in places like Glen Ellen we talked about last week, as well as mayor's races. Your local unit of government doesn't have the same impact on your property tax bill that the schools do, but it has some impact, and it certainly has a substantial impact on your quality of life through the services that you get from your local municipal government. One of the hotly contested races is in the second most populous city in the state, that is the city of Aurora, where you've got a runoff election between Richard Irvin, who's a longtime city council member and an attorney, and the outgoing mayor's assistant chief of staff, a gentleman named Rick Guzman. This is after a rather surprising outcome to outside observers in the primary election, where a sitting state representative who covers the city of Aurora, Linda Chapalavia, finished in third place. She was expected to be the favorite to win the whole thing. She's not even in the runoff. So what's going on in Aurora, and why should people make sure they turn out if they live in Aurora? And what does it say about consideration for paying attention to what's going on in your locale? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by one of those candidates in the runoff for mayor of Aurora. He is Richard Irvin. Richard, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you for having me on.
So the bit of a surprise outcome, at least to outside observers, as I mentioned, with Linda Chapalavia not making the runoff, the race coming down to you versus Rick Guzman. Well, what does it say where residents and voters in the city of Aurora are with respect to kind of the established political class in the state, that they turned away a state legislator who represents them in Springfield?
Say that one more time, brother.
Well, I'm just saying, what is Chapalavia not making the runoff? What does that say about where Aurora voters are, Aurora families are with respect to the incumbent political class?
I think, Aurora, and it clearly showed that they're ready for something different. They're ready for something new, a new direction. And they don't want to put they continue to put their trust and their faith in the establishment. They want somebody who's actually going to look out for their interests. And who's going to represent them, as our public servants are supposed to, and not represent the machine, the political machine. That's what my message was. I want to represent the interests, born and raised in Aurora, and all I care about is the citizens of Aurora. I have no interest or no ties to a political machine where I owe support to them versus the people.
Richard, what are the policies that the people of Aurora should be thinking about as they come into this election on April 4th, and sort of your position on those policies vis-a-vis your opponent, and what you think you can do to make things better for them, and economically and otherwise?
Well, I think what we should be looking at in Aurora is, capitalizing on our strengths and our assets, rebuilding our downtown, focusing on attracting new business and economic development to the city so we can have more revenue streams, making sure we keep crime in check, and most importantly, focus on improving our education on both our east side and our west side. People moving out of the city based on the success of education, and we want to make sure our school districts are successful, which will in turn make our city successful.
And so with respect to the schools, then you're looking, obviously you don't as mayor have dominion over the schools, but you can in many ways partner with the schools to try and enhance the offerings for kids in the Aurora schools. Is that the direction you're going?
Absolutely. And even though the school is a separate taxing body, the reality is the city of Aurora, under the mayor's jurisdiction, we're the only income-generating taxing body. So the more income we generate for the schools, for the city as a whole, will positively affect the schools. Now, the state has a school funding formula that has been failing our school districts, especially in Aurora, for the last couple of decades. That school funding formula hasn't been changed in close to 19 years. And, we're not expecting that the state is going to step up and do that anytime soon. So it's up to local politicians and local public servants to make sure we represent the interests of the schools. And one of the things I want to do is create an education council so we can constantly be talking about how to share resources amongst our school districts. And we have 6 school districts in Aurora, 3 that actually sit inside of Aurora: East Aurora, West Aurora, and Indian Prairie. Talk about how they can share resources, how they can do purchasing together, how we can share best practices so we can lift our education process and our ability to educate our students up to the highest level and make sure we have an educated, prepared workforce for those jobs we're looking to attract to the city.
Now, Aurora is a big suburban community. It's also a diverse suburban community, a sizable Latino population. Your opponent is Latino. You're African-American. There's a sizable African-American population in Aurora as well. You talked about education. You talked about public safety. There's historically been some gang problems in some parts of Aurora. And I wonder how much a race is playing a role in this contest and for minority families, both Latino and African-American, who are perhaps underserved in Aurora at present.
We do have a large Latino population as well as a large African-American population. And an African-American, the candidate is who happens to be African-American. However, my opponent is not Latino. My opponent is from the Philippines. He just has a Spanish last name.
Okay.
Guzman. But he is not Latino at all. Matter of fact, I think although we have a multicultural mix of people, which I believe is the strength of Aurora, and Aurora is the second largest city in the state of Illinois, and our multicultural mix of people, it represents, I think, the whole state. And as an African American, growing up, born, raised in Aurora, I've lived all over the city, and I recognize the struggles of our African American community. I recognize the struggles being a minority of our Hispanic community. I recognize the struggles that our people, hardworking people, go through every single day because I'm one of them. My opponent is from Naperville and has only worked with the city of Aurora for 5 years. Bringing more low-income housing to the city, bringing rising our level of unemployment and reliance on the government to help us. When what I think we should do is focus on attracting private industry into our city, so we can get folks off, our welfare and get them, working. And I think most people want to do that. Get them doing something that helps them to be functional members of society that participate in our economy.
Richard, Chapel-La-Villa obviously was a part of an entrenched political culture here that has led our state, not just in Aurora, but the rest of the state on, what Dan sometimes terms an economic death spiral. And you were able, along with your opponent, to sort of vanquish this sort of prominent leftist politician. What advice do you have to other people that are similarly situated in the state who are going to run similar races, whether it's municipal or later state rep or state senate races, about how to run against and defeat sort of an entrenched political person that's part of a failed policy program?
And I think we did it by having a strong message and a real vision for the growth and prosperity of the city of Aurora. And I think my vision and my story resonated with people. I started from nothing and grew myself. Served in the military, went to war for our country in the Gulf War, came back, put myself through college, first one in my family to go to college. Went on to law school, became a prosecutor, opened my own law practice, my own business right in our downtown. And I talk to our citizens about, overcoming our obstacles. Aurora has obstacles we need to overcome. My whole life has been about overcoming, and I want to help Aurora, as its next mayor, overcome our city's obstacles. So, again, it's having a strong vision, a strong plan, and it overcomes any political connection or political clout.
Now, the issue of property taxes, this seems to me an issue that unites white and black and Latino and Filipino. And I wonder if you're taking any particular position with respect to freezing the city's levy, if you're elected mayor, to allow people to actually reap the benefits of dropping roots in Aurora and building home equity and getting a return on their investment in a way that people are really struggling to do based on the analyses that the papers that I run have been doing, really struggling to do in much of Cook and the suburb and the Collar counties?
Not only would I work to freeze the levy, as a matter of fact, in the city council, I voted against raising the levy, only a year ago, less than a year ago. So I want to give our citizens the ability to recover from the economic crash and recover from the high taxes and recover from the issues that we've been dealing with in our economy. And continually raising taxes puts a strain on them. It makes people not want to come to our city. So we've got to make it inviting. And one way to make it inviting is to put a freeze on tax and work to reduce the levy.
And Richard Irvin, where can people get more information about your candidacy and your campaign?
At irvinformayor.com. It's IRVIN for mayor.com.
irvinformayor.com. He's Richard Irvin, candidate for Aurora mayor in the April 4th city election. Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.